Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, and a welcome to you. Welcome to a lovely Orange Alert Monday. Oh, God. Okay, well, it's the new normal, and it ain't going to get better. It's going to get worse. The new normal. Hi. Monday came along quickly for me this week. I don't know why, but it did. Anyway, this is a faltering beginning, and I apologize. July 17, round myself here. That's the date. Let's start with an obit. It's just one of those days. Let's start with an obituary because it makes me happy. I mean, it's a life that was well lived, and this woman did lovely things and made people happy. So that's why I'm starting with her obit. Downhill from here, I'm just warning you. Mary Ann Hoberman. Never heard of her myself, but I bet some of you have. She wrote a lot of children's books, poetry, tried to get kids into poetry. Now, a lot of people have a very uncomfortable relationship with poetry. I think I do, even though I have taken great delight in some and have been happy back in my school days to encounter poems and have them sometimes explained to me in a way where I could really enjoy them. I've committed a few to memory. I must say that a lot of poetry I look at and I think, what? But I understand poetry really is popular with young people. And I'm wondering if some of them maybe had Mary Ann Hoberman's books read to them. Her most acclaimed book was A House is a House for Me. And it won the National Book Award. And I guess it was all about houses. What are homes to things? Not just people, not just living things, but where things reside. So here's just two little verses. Barrels are houses for pickles, and bottles are houses for jam. A pot is a spot for potatoes. A sandwich is home for some ham. And then the last stanza of that poem, the obit says, where she takes the child or the reader from the micro to the macro. And here it is. A flower's at home in a garden. A donkey's at home in a stall. Each creature that's known has a house of its own, and the earth is a house for us all. I will snidely remark that, yes, it's a house for us all, and we're burning it down. Okay. Anyway, it just seems like I'm looking at a picture of her and she's got this wonderful open face and a beautiful smile. And as I said, I never heard of her, but she wrote books as well to that were meant, and I'm sorry I didn't know about these when my son was young, because I would have loved to do this. the series of books are under the rubric, you read to me, I'll read to you. And they're intended to be read out loud by two people. And sometimes that means alternating lines. You say one, the other says the other, or sometimes reading in unison. And the idea behind them is to encourage not just reading, but reading out loud, which is a wonderful thing. She encouraged kids to write poems of their own. Here's a poem encouraging them. You'll pick out your favorites from those that you've read and invite them to live in that house in your head. This house is called memory. Everyone knows. And the more you put in it, the larger it grows. I love this woman. I don't know. This is, some people say it's poetry, it's doggerel. It's wondrous. It's wondrous. She even wrote her own poem that was meant to be read. She died, but she has, at the age of 92. It ended with these lines. As mother, sister, friend, and wife, I've had a super duper life. You're the ones who made it so. And now it's time for me to go. My time has come. The water's wide. I'll see you on the other side. Mary Ann Hoberman, ladies and gentlemen, starting us off. From the grave, God bless her. Oh, now we're in trouble. Now we're in trouble. Well, now wait. I could do some cleanup. I'd like to. I have a lot of stuff here that I could, like. Once I say it out loud, it goes away. I erase it from my computer, or I crumple it up if it's a piece of paper. So let's do a few of these. I am sure, have you all seen that article about the guy? I've had this here for months now. It was in the Washington Post. It's about a guy who took United Airlines on a hell of a ride. And since they've taken a lot of us on hells of rides, and I mean that with a underscoring hell, I'm really happy he did it. It's a guy named Tom Stucker, or I guess. He's 69 years old. And like more than almost 30 years ago, United marketing department had a real smart idea. They decided, hey, let's see if anyone wants to buy a lifetime pass on our airline. They can fly forever. We just need $290,000. A $290,000 check would get somebody free travel on United for the rest of their lives. So this guy was about he was in his late 30s. He decided, I think that might be a smart thing. And he bought a lifetime pass. And he has by now done the equivalent of 4 trips around the world. And what he does, he never spends a penny on anything. on anything, not just the tickets, because all of those flights give him frequent flyer miles. And he has millions of them. So they can be used for anything. He stays in the most lavish hotel suites. He takes cruises. He eats gourmet meals. And he stays flying first class, of course. He has taken some of those miles and converted them into gift cards, enough gift cards to actually redo his brother's house. He once cashed in $50,000 worth of gift cards from Walmart in a single day. Needless to say, United Airlines has long ceased this offer. You can't get it. This year, he won a charity auction by bidding 451,000 miles to be on a Seinfeld episode. And he was. If you're a Seinfeld fan, he was. It's the one where George's fiance dies from licking envelopes. Snooker didn't have lines, but he was a guy in the diner. He's been to more than 100 countries. His wife is usually with him. There's nothing that stops him. And the airline knows, obviously. Yeah, they know him. They say if you're with him, ropes come down, doors fly open, free champagne bottles end up, and he always sits in 1B. A reporter doing a story on him, asked him questions like, "So you're in the air so much." I mean, he's constantly. He was asked, "Has anybody ever died on one of your flights?" He says, 4. 4 people. So I don't know. He has advice for all of us while flying, and obviously the guy likes to fly. I mean, I would not, but it's interesting. Oh, and there's a correction listed here. It says an earlier version of the story misstated that Tom sells or trades frequent flyer miles. You can't do that. He redeems them through United. And just United wanted that to know. He has flown more miles than any human being in history. 23 million miles. Which is 22 million more than Apollo 11. All right, so that's it. Tom Stucker. And now I can put this away because I think I assumed at the time that most of you had seen that. I don't. Of course, I don't know what you see and what you don't. Okay, another one I just want to get rid of. This is about the New York mayor, Eric Adams. An odd character. The mayors of New York have been some real strange folks lately, don't you think? I don't know. Anyway, this guy, Eric Adams, I guess he was a cop. And when he was running for office, and forever, he has always talked about how he has carried in his wallet a photo of a former officer who was a friend of his who was shot on the job and killed. A guy named Robert Venable. And he used that all the time. And he would say, for instance, at a news conference, the mayor would say, "I still think about him. I keep a picture of him in my wallet." He says that a lot. Well, needless to say, at some point, somebody said, "Can we see the photo?" I mean, I would think that this question would have happened a long time ago. But anyway, he did. He produced it. I guess not immediately, because when he pulled it out, it was, weathered, and it looked like it had been carried around in a wallet for a long time. And unfortunately, what was discovered is that the picture that was shown, all weathered, of the deceased officer, Venable, his friend, when he did show it and pictures were taken of it, it hadn't been in his wallet for decades. It had just been created by people on his staff. What they did, their job was create this thing that I've been carrying around in my wallet. Can you imagine? That's part of your job if you work for this guy. And so they found a picture of the guy on Google. They printed it out in black and white, made it look worn out as if it had, been in the wallet. They even splashed some coffee on it. Anyway, they're continuing to say that this is the real deal. I read this and I thought, I don't understand lying, like this kind of lying. And it seems prevalent almost. Maybe not. Again, these are the things that draw attention. Why would somebody say that he carries a thing in his wallet, which is on him all the time, that isn't really there? Especially if it's like some moving story about his friend. And it was his friend. I mean, he's not lying about the fact that he had this, but he hasn't carried the guy's picture in his wallet. And I guess what's so confusing to me is it shows the kind of, he's not like a Santos, just serial lying lunatic, also from New York, who's now in the Congress and will soon be in jail, I'm sure. But because it's lies by people in a public position who have to face people asking questions all the time, called reporters. Why would you be saying you had something like that on your person and not expect a reporter to say, "Can we see it?" It's such a movie. Can we see it? What was he thinking? And eventually, I guess it had to be produced. How he went as long as he did without somebody saying, "Can I see it?" So, and then they catalog other things. So he lies a lot. He said he was a vegan. He's not. He's a vegetarian. But so why make it to a vegan? I don't understand people who do that. And I know a lot of them. It must come from incredible insecurity that whatever it is you are, it's not good enough, or whatever it is you did, it wasn't good enough. Whatever it is you're trying to, you're trying to relate that will somehow connect you with the person you're talking to, it needs a little uptick. I suppose, I don't know. He gave a commencement address in 2019 about intimidating a neighbor, some kind of story for some reason. And he later acknowledged that no, it hadn't happened. The story, which centered on him, hadn't really happened to him. He just sort of borrowed it. And I just don't get it. There's a recklessness about it. There's a sense that you're not going to get caught. And it's fascinating that so many people in the public eye, again, with inquiring journalists around them, choose to live that way. Well, they go on and on, lots of quotes about how he just kept saying it. And you know what happens, I think, when people do this? They believe it. I bet he, on some level, would have been shocked to look in his wallet and find the so-called photo not there. You tell a story long enough and it becomes real to you. So at some point, these people who are constantly embellishing really do believe what they're saying. Odd. Okay, there's another one I can take down. And then there was this. Somebody wrote me a long time ago saying, and I think I said it on the air. I read the email on the air, but nobody came back with an answer. And then Pittsburgh City Paper did a story on it that answered the question. But somebody asked me, said that he drove by it all the time. It bugged the hell out of him. And it was the statue of Christopher Columbus in Schenley Park. And the question was, wait a minute, I thought it was decided that thing was going to be taken down. And instead, it got covered up. So there was some draping put over it. And now, I think the emailer had said, it's not, and the draping is falling off. And now it looks like it's Christopher Columbus, but his head is in a hood. Like he's, been taken into custody and they're taking him somewhere and they don't want him to see where he is. So that's sort of the state, I guess, of the statue, at least when I haven't been by it. So I don't know. But the guy who emailed me wanted to know what the hell's going on. Anyway, this is where Pittsburgh City Paper comes in, and I'll now answer that question. So a judge ruled well over a year ago that statue could lawfully be removed. It has been covered up for over 3 years, since 2020. But as I said, parts of it have become uncovered. Well, they were going to take it down, and then some Italians, because Columbus had Italian origins, started squawking and saying, how dare you? But even so, the art commission, which I guess the city's art commission has authority over it, still stood up to the outraged Italians and said, no, this thing's coming down. And then a judge, as I said, yeah, that's perfectly all right. Everybody's done all the necessary work. However, immediately after the judge said, all right, take it down, the sons and daughters, the Italian sons and daughters of America, appealed the decision. And they say that the mayor, who was then Bill Peduto, lacked the authority, which the judge obviously didn't agree. Anyway, so it's mired in, it is making its way through the court system with both sides laconically, is that the right word? Filing briefs and just delaying what I assume is the inevitable. Since the mayoralty has changed, Mayor Gainey's press secretary said there's no updates to share about the statue. And she said that they're looking into options. I think Mayor Gainey's saying, oh, come on, I got bigger fish to fry here. I don't care. And the Italian sons and daughters attorney didn't even want to speak to the city paper. So there it is. Anyway. Oh, you know what? I think this article was written because the guy who wrote me also wrote City Paper, and or I forwarded it to City Paper, which I don't remember doing. So, because they're quoting him and they're quoting the letter. So there you go. Anyway, that's there you see, ask and ye shall receive. Can't do that right now. Well, I feel good about that. Excuse me, getting rid of that. And did I tell you, haven't heard my landline ring? Remember how my landline used to ring during the show? It doesn't ring anymore. Did I tell you? I just ripped them out of the wall. I still paid for them. Here's the way that works. I called my provider and said, I don't want to pay for a landline. And they said, well, you know, that's part of a bundle that you have. A triple bundle. You have your landline, your computer, and your television. And we give you a nice price because you're letting us handle all three of these things. I said, well, but I don't want a landline. And they said, well, here's the way that's going to work. If you take the landline out, then having the other two is actually going to cost you more than if you had three. Not a lot more, but more, like a few bucks. This is how crazy things are. So I said, but that is insane. So I realized, okay, so it's cheaper to pretend I want a landline and pay for this landline, but I don't want it. So I just took them out of the wall, unplugged them. So now I really don't have well, I guess I do if I ever need one. I haven't thrown whatever. How weird is that? And I have since found out that I'm not alone. Actually, in terms of landlines, less than a quarter of Americans still have them. So, and I guess I would be counted as having them just because I pay for it. But you can betcha that that is one group of old farts. Yeah. And imagine the people who only have a landline. Oh my God. So they actually, look, 73% of Americans live in a household without a landline. And that has tripled that number in the last 20 some years. So there you go. Nobody's got them, but you can be sure only 2% of American adults use only a landline. So there you have it, 2%. Wow. The largest group, of course, are people 65 and older. And that is the only demographic for which households with landlines still outnumber wireless only households. But even that, even the old farts are coming around. So there you go. Okay, now I can get rid of the landline one. Thank you. This is something I usually do at the end of the week, but it was a quiet weekend. So today in the Washington Post, our governor, that would be Shapiro, our governor, who we are told is being watched carefully by people who do such watching carefully as a possible presidential contender. And so the Washington Post, I'm sure eagerly, wrote, carried, and I don't know what it would be called, a opinion piece, an essay, something that he wrote, which I don't even have in front of me. I read it, and it was, what it was he was talking about how when the highway, remember the highway was at 95, was I-95 in Philly, truck overturned, caught fire, yada, yada, and the whole is extraordinarily heavily traveled highway that impacted the fact that bridge on the highway went down, that part of the highway went down, was huge. And initially it was said it would take months and months and months to rebuild. And the impact on Philadelphians, let alone commerce, would be huge. And then because you guys follow news, you will recall that it was up and running in like 12 days. They fixed the friggin' thing in 12 days. So Governor Shapiro wrote a piece, which I guess is in today's Post, certainly online it is, saying how this shows how things can get done. We think government can't get things done. It can. And here's how we did it, defying all expectations. And, so he has number one, we were, 24/7, we were this, we were that. He passed certain, we were open to creativity. I issued an executive order saying that any permits that were needed would be expedited. So permits that normally take months and months, could be gotten in hours, yada, yada, yada. So he opens up the bureaucracy to say, yeah, and it gets done. And so he wrote that and then said, and this is an example of how government works. And I read it and I thought, I had a bad reaction to it. And then I looked at the comments, and a guy, the first comment, nailed it. What my feeling of discomfort was. Just nailed it. And here's what that commenter said. He said, Governor Shapiro, You cannot propel yourself forward by patting yourself on the back. First of all, I'd never heard that turn of phrase, and I like it. You cannot propel yourself forward by patting yourself on the back, which was what the piece was. And it was, adding to this sense of what a great, this was the ambitious Josh Shapiro putting himself out there for a guy who gets things done. And then after I saw that, then I was looking at some of the other comments, and of course people were saying, "Hey, Governor, when as long as you're able to do all that, how about?" And people were talking about, how about the bridge? This bridge. How about that bridge? How about the pothole that won't stop? How about that process where permits just stymie everything? How about expediting that baby constantly? All the time, so people had at him, and it made me chuckle because I think that's the kind of piece you let somebody else write, right? Because you cannot propel yourself forward by patting yourself on the back. Oh, for Christ's sake, that's my doorbell. I got rid of the landline. How am I supposed to deal with this? A lanky young man in a white shirt. He knows I'm here. He saw me. I can't. He's looking through the window at me. I'm pointing at my headset. I can't come, guy. Oh, for Christ's sake. Should I go? He left. Whew. All right, there's that. Barbara sent me something that Summer Lee did at that's our congressperson, at a congressional hearing, and it was good. And it has to do with bridges, too. So some guy from the Pentagon was appearing in front of whatever committee. This was that god-awful defense package that the Republicans, just made laden heavy with, I don't even want to get into it. So this was part of bringing people in and finding out what money was needed, where it was being spent. And Summer Lee's turn came to question the representative of the Pentagon. She said, I love this. This is one of those things. Again, this is performative. She has no power. She's a Republicans control the House. She's the lowest of the low on the minority side, the Democrats, and probably one of the last questioners. She has no seniority. But she was ready to get some ink, which again is what the process is now. So her question was to the principal director at the Department of Defense, whatever that means. And she said, how much on average does the military spend on Viagra each year? Now, I got to tell you right now, it never occurred to me that the Pentagon had a line item for Viagra in its massive budget. How silly of me. Anyway, the principal director at the Department of Defense responded, I don't have that figure. Well, she did, which is why, of course, she asked the question. She said, I'll tell you, it's about $41.6 million. What? What? The Pentagon spends over $41 million a year on effing Viagra? And And she said, do you know how many bridges in my district of Pittsburgh could be repaired with that amount? And she went on to embarrass this guy further. I mean, so her staff had gone through and looked at what we, the people, what our tax dollars go for. If it's occurring to you that we spend $41 million on Viagra so some guy can get a hard on, or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 41 million plus. But this same defense bill made sure that nothing related to women's reproductive health care would get a penny. God. Makes you nuts. And then there's this. Oh, wait. Where would I be if I couldn't talk about artificial? How do you not talk about this artificial intelligence thing? I was having dinner with friends Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and the subject just keeps coming up. It's not like people aren't talking about it. And I'm hoping that some of you saw this David Brooks piece, because I don't think I shared this with you. I'm not sure, because he writes, I mean, the headline is, he didn't write the headline, but the headline writer read the piece and then did the headline. And the headline is, human beings are soon going to be eclipsed. Okay, so here we are again with this thing that I'm somewhat obsessed about now. I mean, I'm just fascinated by it. It's like I'm just talk about watching a train wreck. Man, it's going to be some train wreck. So, David Brooks writes that he, first of all, is a big fan of this guy named Douglas Hofstadter, who he said is an eminent cognitive scientist, some guy who spent his life knowing how the brain works. And Brooks writes how he came upon an essay written by this guy in 2018, which totally dovetailed with what Brooks himself thinks about this hysteria over artificial intelligence. And Brooks writes, so I see this article and it made me so happy because I really believe that AI will be an amazing tool, but I don't think it'll ever have what we guys got, essentially. It's never going to, I'll use his word, it's not going to possess understanding, self-awareness, emotions, desires, a body, biology. I mean, it doesn't possess the nonverbal tacit knowledge that humans take for granted. It's not sentient. It does many things way faster than us, but it lacks the depth of a human mind. And my reaction to that defense and refusal to acknowledge the obvious danger here is that none of that matters. Why do we think emotion is a positive in whatever this battle is between machine and humans? I would argue that it's human emotion that is often an impediment to efficiency, I'm thinking, I keep having images of Dr. Spock, and his approach as opposed to the, Kirk's. Humans, I don't know. Anyway, Brooks goes on to say, look, it's here, it's going to be used in some wonderful ways and some terrible ways, but it is not going to replace us. And it's not going to cause massive social disruption that these hypesters, I guess that's me, are warning about. It's not going, AI, to wake up one day and decide to conquer the world. Okay. So then Brooks gets to the rest of the story. After seeing that initial piece written by this guy he admired so. Unfortunately, he came upon a more recent piece that the brilliant, eminent cognitive scientist had published. And in that, he said this. Brilliant guy. It's a very traumatic experience when some of your most core beliefs about the world start collapsing. And especially when you think that human beings are soon going to be eclipsed. There's the headline. And Hofstadter went on to say, since the 5 years when he had written the other piece, I'm sorry, but now seeing where it's going, it renders humanity a very small phenomenon compared to something else that is far more intelligent and will become incomprehensible to us. As incomprehensible to us as we are to cockroaches. I wish he hadn't said cockroaches. That was a low blow. And so David Brooks calls him up. God, guy, you're on my side. And they had a talk. And after the talk, Brooks really got rattled. And Hofstadter had told him, it's just scaring the daylights out of me. It's very hard for me to find any peace. And again, this is a guy who's not easily scared. This is a guy who was sanguine about this just 5 years ago. And this guy, who's the guy who understands how the human brain works, says that artificial intelligence is developing consciousness. Because where there's thought, there's consciousness. He said, and we're approaching the stage when we're going to have a hard time saying that this machine is unconscious or non-sentient. We're going to have to grant it some degree of consciousness, some degree of aliveness. And Brooks' response to that was, geez, I mean, normally when these tech executives tell me that artificial intelligence will soon achieve general human level intelligence, I silently think to myself, this person may know tech, but he doesn't really know human intelligence. I mean, he does not understand how complex and vast and deep the human mind is. But Brooks unhappily says, but Hofstadter, he does. He does understand the human mind better than almost anybody. He's a humanist down to his bones with a reverence for the mystery of human consciousness, who has written movingly about love and the deep interpenetration of souls. So his words carry weight, and they shook. So Brooks is still not willing to totally throw in the towel. He says, I'll give you just one more little thing. He says, Hofstadter points out that AI is not constrained by the factors that limit human brains, like having to fit inside a skull. And he emphasizes they are improving at an astounding rate, while human intelligence is not. And then Brooks admits it's hard to dismiss any of that. But then he says this, I don't know about you, but I find myself surrounded by radical uncertainty. Uncertainty not only about where humanity is going, but about what being human is. As soon as I begin to think, I'm beginning to understand what's happening, something surprising happens. The machines perform a new task. An authority figure, Hofstadter, changes his mind. And he admits he's now feeling defensive. And he says some of the people that talk about this matter-of-factly and with little emotion, they're the ones who really he finds odd. He says at least Hofstadter is enough of a human to be horrified. Okay, so there was that, which I found, it was, yeah. And then you see that the actors going on strike and the screenwriters going on strike, and the more these kinds of the upheavals, labor, this will reinvigorate the labor movement, artificial intelligence, because everybody's job is at risk. Everybody's. This is the biggest boon to the labor recruitment industry than there ever has been. Because these guys, before they take us out totally, they're going to take millions upon millions upon millions of jobs. And you see how increasingly people are, here, I'll give you this. This is, there's a number of writers now and content creators that are suing Facebook, Google, because these guys steal everything. And this is the stuff, all that information that feeds the brains of the machines is stolen from the internet. It's all out on the internet. I mean, every word, when I was talking to a friend about it, she said, well, you're feeding the machines by virtue of being on the internet. Every word you speak is out there. For all you know, they've already what they call scraped all that stuff up. So and my son has pointed out that I could take a month off and we'll have AI using all my words and thoughts for the last, 15 years or so that are out there in the cloud someplace. And, it can create an entire show while I sleep in the other room. So anyway, there's this the thing we're waking up to now called generative AI, because it generates text and images and content from all this crap it's vacuumed up. And it can easily produce human-like speech, poetry, and the current machines are trained on hordes of just all kinds of data. So that's how they so easily answer questions that are thrown at them, how they mimic writing styles, how they can churn out comedy. And if you're a writer in television, movies, books, you are in danger. And that is part of why you see all these folks carrying picket signs and out on the streets. So, actually, Beth sent me this about how Los Angeles, my connection was interrupted. Right now, the labor movement, there have been focal points of it throughout its history. Pittsburgh was, at one point, obviously a focal point of, I give you the Homestead strike, steel and mining. This was a hotbed of union organizing. This is where a lot of people wanting unions were mowed down. There are historical, what do you call those, plaques all over the place in this city, where on this spot, the friggin' the army mowed down protesters. It was always about labor trying to create a union. But right now, LA is the place. Tens of thousands of hotel workers walked, the screenwriters walked, the school teachers have walked, college workers have walked, and it's just a hotbed. I mean, LA is grinding to a halt, and this is very new for it. Other places have had their day in the sun when it comes to being the center of labor, and it is now Los Angeles. Oh dear, I have a caller, but we've got all of 2 minutes left, so come on in.
Hi, Lynn. This is Adrienne Weiss in Monroeville.
Okay.
And
Adrienne.
Hi. And your talk on the 13th about the environment spurred me to want to just touch base with you. I have been trying for 10 years to uproot Smokey Bear, who said, only you could prevent forest fires, because obviously that's not the case, because the environmental impacts of climate change are also not be able to prevent forest fires. So, and they're rampant, as we know, with our air quality and so forth. And so I came up with the idea that humanity is in trouble. And I hear the word humanity all the time. And so I came up with a manatee, who's a Florida mammal, off the coast of the Gulf and so forth. And I said, I'm going to name him Hugh. And so he's Hugh Manatee. And I wanted him to be the new mascot for the environmental activist movement. So I have a website.
Okay, go ahead. Give your website. I've seen Hugh Manatee, and he's adorable. Mascot. But what do you hope? Give your website first, Adrian.
All right. It's https:// then the numeral 4 and then HUGHMANATEE.com.
Okay, so Hugh, like the name, HUGH, and manatee, like the
animal,
mammalian aquatic.
Correct. So, but the number 4 precedes that.
4 precedes it. So for humanity, which is very clever. But what do you hope? I mean, why wouldn't like the some environmental agency?
I have tried for 10 years. I have tried for 10 years. I have written every single NRDC and 350.org and you name it. And the only one who really endorsed it was Noam Chomsky. He said, this is really timely and it should light a spark. Well, that was so cute that I asked him, can I quote that on my website? And he said, yes. So I appreciate his endorsement.
You got Noam Chomsky's, thumbs up. And you
yes,
still
I
can't
did.
get people to, if there's anybody out there who has any bright ideas. No, she doesn't want money. She wants to save humanity.
I just want people to run with it. And if they can put it on everything that's good for the planet, that would be fabulous. And I will be happy to give out the vector art for any advertising that people want to do to try to get this out there. But I'm not getting anywhere. I even wrote to Sir David Attenborough, who said, well, I've been swimming with manatees. I've filmed them, but I don't know if this will catch on.
Wow, though, but he responded.
He did in his own handwriting. It was cool.
Dear God. Well, you know what?
A lot of people don't.
I am impressed. I'm impressed by your doggedness, by your effort, and I wish you nothing but the best. If I knew how to do something like that, I'd.
And my website runs 100% on solar panels out in California. AIS, yeah. So I'm doing everything I can. Anything I print is on recycled paper. But I just don't know where to go with it anymore, and I'm facing maybe another breast cancer again. So, yeah, I had mastectomy 10 years ago, so I'm in that place. So I'm 70 years old. I just don't know where to go with it anymore. But if you could give me any advice, or if someone else can call in with advice, I'd be happy to listen every single day to your show.
Thank you. I don't know. You seem so far ahead of me in what you've already done. Anybody out there, any ideas? And they can get to you at forhumanity.com?
Yes, my website has got my email on there.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all you have done over the many years.
All I do is blather. But good for you.
I love it.
Thank you. My best to you.
Appreciate it.
To you. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye now.
Goodbye. Bye. Oh, wow. Man. Come on, somebody. Do something for her. Jeez. Noam Chomsky. God, he's still around. That's amazing. He's got to be 100 years old. Okay, I think that's it. We're out of time and then some. So thank you so much. I'll be back tomorrow. Susan should be in tow. And we'll hope for a good one. Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.